Yeah, this is good. This will be a good show.
It should be. I'm excited.
So to stay tuned in. Don't turn off this podcast.
That's right. If you do, we'll know. We're tracking you. Not really.
We're not really.
We're not Facebook. Oh, wait, did I say that? Sorry.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Are you tired of it? Too bad. Banter.
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Rob Minot, and joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Hey.
And that's it. No Steve again today. Wah.
He's a working man.
He is. So, but don't worry. I'm sure everybody will get their Steve fix next week. Maybe.
We'll have to wait and see.
Wait, what is next? Is next week the Halloween show?
Nope.
That's the week after?
Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. Halloween show, incidentally, is coming up.
It is.
So that we're excited about that. Always excited about these special occasion shows that we do.
Yeah. Well, you've come up with some really nice, intro Halloween music or Christmas music every year. So I look forward to that.
Putting the pressure on me again this year.
I just used what you used last year. It was great.
Don't tempt me.
Do it.
Yeah, so that, what is that? That's going to be obviously the weekend or week of Halloween, obviously.
Yeah, I think Halloween's on the Wednesday, so we'll do it on the Monday.
Anything to report?
Anything to report? Well, I still haven't got the new Windows update, fall update yet, so I'm happy about that.
Have there been any reports about whether they fixed the issue?
They pulled it back, and they said they fixed the issue. And then after they fixed the issue, people were reporting blue screens and losing audio. So it hasn't been pulled back again, from my understanding. So it's still being pushed out to people. So, and supposedly they've issued a fix for the audio issue.
Yeah, well, and just to refresh people's memory, what was the problem initially?
Oh, it was deleting all your user files. So everything in your documents folder and personal files and folders, gone.
Now, was it gone permanently, or was it just kind of disappeared them, and then you could restore?
I don't know. No, I don't know if you could do it roll back, because I saw a couple articles online of how to get your data back. So I don't think it was a Microsoft tool. Like, they weren't just in your recycle bin. Like, I think they were gone.
Ooh.
Yeah. But it didn't happen to everybody. It just happened to some people.
Yeah, well, if it happens to one person, that's too many.
Exactly. Yep.
But
so hopefully Microsoft will maybe slow things down a little bit and kind of work some bugs out of the system.
Yeah, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Or we'll all go to Chromebooks.
I don't know. We had that discussion about Chrome OS.
Insert cricket sound here.
Yeah, no one's excited about that.
Some people might be.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
What are we doing today?
Today we are talking with founder of Actiview, Mr. Alen Koren.
Yeah, and what is Actiview, sir?
Actiview is an app for your smartphone that gives a person with a disability, such as deaf or hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, deaf, or even needing sign language interpretation, through this app to go to movie theaters and watch movies in an accessible fashion.
So it's basically a mobile version of the software that's already existing in movie theaters that provide audio description?
Well, the movie theaters don't have software. They have a hardware dedicated device that I've actually personally never used myself. I've heard stories of people going in and asking for the device, and the staff at the theater have no idea what you're talking about or how to work the device. So I've personally never actually even asked for one. So I don't know how they actually work, but I don't believe they're an app. I think they're a dedicated hardware device, probably like an FM transmitter.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly either, but all I've heard is pretty much horror stories about the movie theaters, and they're not really providing a very good upkeep to the devices. So a lot of times they don't work, or the batteries are dead, and there's nobody there really to support it. So if you're a blind patron going to a movie theater and it doesn't work, you're just kind of out of luck.
Yep.
Because certainly the usher or the people selling popcorn aren't going to be able to tech support it. So
That's why when I heard about these guys, I was really, really excited to get them on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody else doing this.
No, I don't think so. And I have a lot of questions for them, and hopefully this catches on, because it sounds incredibly convenient.
Absolutely.
You could essentially download the app and go to any movie and sync it up and listen on your headphones and have described audio.
Well, we have to ask Alex as well. Like they have certain titles that they're working with. So we'll have to make a mental note to go back and ask as well, what about back catalogs? Because there's a lot of movies out there with the descriptive audio track.
Well, I think, there's definitely two prongs to this, where there is content that is currently in theaters, and then content that's obviously available on, say, in digital.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, what exactly they're working and where their focus is. So, wasn't there something new about Facebook?
Facebook's releasing a portal. It's kind of like a Google Home Hub, but with a camera. It's going to track you everywhere you go in your house. It's
you know what?
Track you.
You know what? I did want to actually talk a little bit about the Google event that we talked about last week. There was I did do a little bit more reading after we released the show, and I was right about the fact that the
Bob was right.
Yeah, I know, right? The Google Hub, that they haven't put a camera in there specifically they're marketing it as a feature.
Right.
Like they're saying that, you don't have to worry about your privacy. You don't have to worry about a camera in your bedroom.
Yeah. Whole different angle.
We don't have a camera on it. So it's interesting that they've sort of taken, all these security and privacy concerns that people have voiced about the different digital assistants, and actually, use that as a feature. It's like,
have you looked at any reviews that have been released yet on the Google Home Hub?
No.
Me either yet.
No, it's a little too early, I think.
No, there's some out there.
Is there?
Yeah, but I haven't listened to them.
I don't know. I would get one. I mean, I think it's. I don't know that I would use it a heck of a lot differently than.
The only thing I heard some people complaining about is that the screen is only 7 inches, so it's a really small screen when most others are 9-10 inches.
Right.
So
it's almost not worth
maybe,
it.
Well, it might be okay if it's sitting on your kitchen counter and you're using it to look up a recipe or something.
Right.
But staring at a YouTube video from across the room is probably not going to do you any good.
Right. Okay. Well, hey, listen. Let's without further ado, let's get right to Alex.
Hello.
Hey, is that Alex?
Yeah, it is. How's it going?
Good.
Hey.
Alex, I'm Ryan.
How's it going, Ryan?
Doing well, thank you. And in the room, my hostess with the mostest, or host with the most, Mr. Rob Minot.
Did you just call me a hostess?
I did. That's why I changed it.
Sure. Hey, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, I'm so glad you could join us. I've been wanting to get you guys on for so long. So I'm glad you could make it.
Glad to be here.
Excellent.
Let's start out and with just maybe describing exactly what the Actiview app does.
The Actiview app is a mobile application that was built to enable people that are hard of hearing, deaf, blind, low vision, or speak a different language to be included in entertainment, namely movies and TV. So you can use the app at a movie theater, in your own home, and have access to captions, audio description, translations, any accessible or auxiliary service that's necessary for anyone to be a part of watching that content.
Now I have to ask, where did all of this start from? Because nobody else seems to be doing this, and so it just kind of came out of left field.
Sure. I think that to describe where Actiview comes from, I have to explain a little bit about my background. I'm 24 years old, and I was at Johns Hopkins for 2 years. When I was 19, I decided I didn't want to drop out of school and work on technology. I received a grant to move out to California and packed up 2 duffel bags, came out this way, and started consulting on bunch of different technology to figure out where my passion really lied. And I realized that I wanted to build technology that mattered to people. I didn't want to build Uber for laundry or Tinder for cat food. I wanted to build things that really impacted people's lives. And a family friend of mine approached me and said, hey, Alex, I've been losing my hearing recently. I went to a movie theater and used one of the assisted listening devices, and it ran out of battery halfway through. And it was such a shame because I had to leave the theater with my family. We just didn't watch the movie. We left. And he asked me, given all the technology that's available today, why can't I do this? Why can't I be included in going out with my family to the theater? And I said, it's not that simple, but let me look into what we can do to solve that. And that's when I learned about audio description, learned about captions and subtitling, the dubs and translations, and all those other auxiliary mediums that enable people to take part.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot of stories from people who, can get really frustrated with the different equipment that the movie theaters have. A lot of times they won't work. A lot of times, like you said, the batteries aren't working. There's nobody sort of on site that really seems to know the system well enough.
No, absolutely. I think that was really the impetus for all this was those stories. It was that one anecdotal piece of evidence from a family friend, but it very quickly expanded into just the norm for people. I think there was kind of this joke in the community that the easiest way to get free tickets is just to go to a movie, because you kind of could assume the equipment wasn't going to be up to par in so many cases. And I think that, when people go to a movie, this is the last thing they want to worry about. This is the last thing they want to think about. They want to just sit down and enjoy. And I think that, what we've been about since the beginning has always been, how do we make this feel seamless? How do we make someone walk into a theater and buy a ticket, buy popcorn, and the rest of it's just sitting down in the seat and watching the movie? And that was really kind of how our constraints and goals when designing the application itself.
And so how does the process work?
Sure. So for a user who's walking into the theater, they will go onto the application and find a movie that they want to watch. As a disclaimer, we don't have every movie. We license each of these from the studios, and these are coming from studios that are making a commitment to providing better access. But provided the studio is allowing their content to be viewed through the Actiview app, you can download the audio description track, the captions, the dubs, whatever services are available before the movie starts. And we recommend people do that at home over Wi-Fi just to make sure they have the file, but you can do it at the theater. There's no reason you have to do it beforehand. Once you're in the theater, you simply tap the service that you want to use once it's been downloaded, and your phone's going to start listening to the movie that you're watching. It's going to listen to hear where in the movie you are. So let's just say you walk in 10 minutes late and hit the play button in the app. It'll recognize that you're already 10 minutes into that movie just by listening to it. And once it figures that out, it takes about 10, 15 seconds, it'll automatically play back the content you selected, synchronized with what you're watching.
Man, that's brilliant. Okay, well, that answers the syncing question.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So it's a seamless, or it's a basically invisible process where the user doesn't even notice that there's anything going on. It just the app just starts working.
Exactly. There's a screen that comes up as it's syncing that'll tell the user, just a heads up, make sure your microphone isn't obstructed, make sure it can hear the movie. This might take a little while, with a small progress bar that explains a little bit what the app is doing. And again, that process is a 10 to 15 second process as long as there's sound in the movie theater. The one caveat of the technology, I'll admit that everything's not perfect, is if the movie starts in a very, very quiet scene, it can be difficult to sync. And that's one thing that we're trying to figure out with some theaters as to how we can get some sound that might play before a movie. But again, it's a longer process further in the future. For right now, the hope is that within the first 30 seconds of any film, there's some audio we can latch onto and figure out exactly where you are and start playing that content back.
Right.
And so currently, have you found the studios quite receptive to the service?
Sure. I think that on an individual level, every person at a studio recognizes the value of providing better services for people that need them. And then at a corporate level, things get a little more murky. The process that we go through usually is to touch base with operations and say, hey, here's a service we can provide. You guys hand off the same files you're already handing off to the theaters that enable the hardware devices to us, and we'll make them available to your customers, make sure everyone can use them, whether a theater has the equipment or not. And the questions that usually come up are security-wise. How are you making sure that that the content is safe for us to make sure there's no anti-piracy, or so no piracy concerns, that anti-piracy is in place. Two, for 20 years, we've been telling people don't bring their phones in the theaters, and all of a sudden we're saying bring your phones to the theaters, and they're asking how is that going to affect or impact other customers,
Right.
And exhibition. And then, also just operationally, how do we get you the files in time? How do we know, that everything's working, quality assurance? There's a lot of pieces that kind of go beyond just handing over some MP3s and saying, here you go, make it accessible. And so I think that everyone that we talk to wants to find a way to make it work, but every studio has a very, very different process for actually going through that. And that's kind of where the challenges lie.
We're up here in Canada, and I think you guys have told me in the past that the service is only available in the U.S. Is that due to licensing, or isn't it the same file that gets distributed?
It's 100% due to licensing. Our goal is to gun for 100% coverage of access wherever people need the app. And the challenges are, of course, along distribution schedules and licensing from studios, and the software by its own nature is available wherever you want it to be available. And so we are ready and comfortable to make it available in other countries. The challenges are the studios limiting the availability to certain certain territories. And that's not, I think, unreasonable in the beginning, at least, just because, again, it's a test. We're talking about opening up a new use case in theaters. As I mentioned, 20 years they've been saying no cell phones in theaters. We're opening it up. I think for them to go, international with it from day one is a bit of a big ask. But then again, from our perspective, it's always a disappointment when we can't give it to someone who wants to use it, who's just across a border, or, even just a few miles north of someone in upstate New York or otherwise. That's certainly been challenging for us personally, because we do get emails in saying, hey, why isn't this movie available in Canada or the UK or Australia? And we just say we want it to be, we wish it could be, but we really appreciate the patience. And I think that the thing that we can ask of anyone who wants Actiview available where they are is email us, send us a story about what it was like to go to a theater that didn't have the accessibility equipment, because we're in a position to share those stories with the studios and say, hey, here's evidence that if you did provide this to Actiview for other countries, it would result in more ticket sales and more butts in seats. Because at the end of the day, there's always this socially impactful aspect of helping people, but they're also worried about their bottom line. And they're going to be wondering, is it worth the effort, the time, the maintenance, to make sure that enough people go to the theater that make it worth that while. And so that's the question we have to answer. And if we can prove to them with evidence from customers, I will only go to a movie if Actiview is available, otherwise I can't, then they're going to stand up and say, okay, we should do this because that's tickets going to be sold that we can't sell otherwise.
Well, I think too that in the last couple of years, theater goers have really cut back on the amount of movies they're going to see. There hasn't been a lot of big, blockbusters consistently. There's a lot of, dribs and drabs of movies, but, without the superhero movies, a lot of people just wait until things come out on Blu-ray or Netflix and watch it from home, right? So the theater owners are losing money already. And so anything to get, like you say, more butts in the seats is an asset for them. But the one thing I want to come back to is, my wife and I were going to go see Christopher Robin here at one of our theaters. And it was described. It had, I think, 2 showings on a Saturday and a Tuesday or something at specific times. So if it's described already here, is it possible for me to, if you guys had that available, download it from you guys, and would it sync up with my theater here in Canada?
The app, the technology itself would synchronize, but being in Canada, the app wouldn't allow you to see that Christopher Robin is available.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of geofence based on the territories that that, for this instance, Disney tells us we can geofence to, and which was the U.S. only. And so, again, it does kind of present us with a challenge where people say, but the audio description does exist. We know it does, but we want to use Actiview. And we have to say, for the meantime, we're sorry. And again, it kind of is out of our hands. We're a two-person company here in California, and it's personal for us. Sure. It truly is to be providing access, and it's definitely painful every time we can't. And so I think that, being able to tell studios from the perspective of a user, I want to use Actiview, I don't want to be using this other equipment, make it available in my territory too, that goes a long way, a really long way.
Perfect.
So I'm just curious about a little bit about the politics here. Do you deal mainly with the studios, or do you deal with the actual theaters as well?
We deal mainly with the studios. Exhibition and theatrical really is something we do more out of relationship building, just for when problems might arise. If someone has an issue with the Actiview app, we want theaters to know that they can reach out to us for support. We want theaters to be aware of what this phone usage means for them and everything we're trying to do to make sure that we're not a source of piracy, that we're not a source of irritation for other customers. We would just want to have those relationships available, but really our entire system could work without theaters even being aware of us existing. Studios give us the content, the synchronization, by nature of the microphone, creating the sync requires theaters to do nothing for this to be available. We would love for theaters to put up signs and say, Actiview works here. I mean, yes, it works everywhere, but just to tell customers it's available, as a way to let them know that they're aware, that they care, and that they want to be supportive of equal access and just kind of a universal movie-going experience.
Yeah, I mean, because I would think that, again, it goes back to more butts in the seats. I would think that theater owners, especially these days, I mean, they would probably feel that they have a stake in this too, and that's an untapped demographic there. The deaf, hard of hearing, visually impaired, all these potential customers that certainly would come to the theater a lot more often than they do if they knew that there is an option that's going to work for them.
Without a doubt. And I think that, that comes back to a much more core issue, which is that we've got a chicken and egg problem here. The theater owners don't think that deaf and blind people want to watch movies because they don't go, but they don't go because the access is provided.
Right.
So if I walked into a theater owner and said, there are people who need amplified audio, captions, audio descriptions that will come to your theater given access, they look at me and say, you crazy? I've never seen a blind person come into my theater. And I say, obviously, because the services aren't available for them. But in their mind, it means that demographic doesn't exist and isn't impactful on the bottom line. I think that people tend to forget that a significant percentage, more than 10% of the U.S. falls into a demographic of either needing some sort of hearing, visual, or language supplemented service that enables them to watch that content. And 10% is not a number to scoff at in the slightest.
No.
And so I think that that's why the anecdotes really come a long way, for us, because it allows us to bring quantitative and qualitative evidence to these studios, these stakeholders, and say, look, it's not just us saying that they will come. There are people who are making their voices heard, that this is important to them.
Well, and in the last couple of years, I'm sure you've noticed as well as we have, there's been such a big awareness awakening when it comes to accessibility, universal design, by all the big players, Microsoft, Apple, everybody is waking up to this whole demographic like you're talking about of consumers who have money to spend and will go spend their money if they have the ability to do so.
Well, not only that, I mean, even just the audio description itself has really grown in the past 3 to 4 years. There are mandates now for, television programming, for example, that a certain percentage, a certain number of hours every day of primetime content has to be audio described.
Right.
So, and Netflix is getting better. A lot of the Netflix original stuff have audio descriptions. So, it's becoming less and less of a mystery, I think, to people. And people are really, getting aware of this. So hopefully that will help you guys gain a little bit of traction with them. Because I mean, who knows? Have you guys considered like I don't know much about the proprietary systems that the theaters say have in the theaters themselves. But I mean, I would think that, you know, if you could prove that Actiview really works well, they could just replace that with tablets or smartphones or whatever with the Actiview app on them.
Sure. You know, the first product that we actually built at Actiview was a box that could be installed in a projection system, and then you'd have tablets on hand to provide this content. Instead of using the microphone synchronization or using, downloading the content before you got there, the box would be transmitting all of that data over Wi-Fi to your phone. The challenge that we have with the current, that we ended up turning off that initial development because of the sales cycle and relationships we'd have to build with the theaters to actually sell these boxes and the price point we'd have to make them at.
Right.
But when we look at the current system, which is kind of studio focused, the challenge is that it's not ADA compliant if we don't have every movie. And
Right.
so if we don't have a deal with every studio for every one of their films coming through there, we kind of run into these issues of, are we creating a compliant system? Definitely, if we did, it would be cheaper. You can buy Android tablets nowadays for $50 in bulk, and certainly, make the Actiview app available on them. The Android app, by the way, is coming out in what looks like a few weeks for us.
Yay!
Thank you. I can speak more to that in a moment, but the I think that the ADA compliance is something that's more of a longer term goal for us because of that limitation of, are we working with enough studios to make that compliance met?
Right.
Rob and I were talking before the show, and are you guys focused more on kind of blockbuster movies, or how do you pick and choose which movies you want to be able to give access to? Because there's such a huge back catalog of movies that have descriptive audio tracks and closed captioning, which goes back 50 years or however long it is. How do you guys pick and choose?
Sure. Well, for theatrical, we're taking anything that's really coming up that's going to have wide enough distribution to make available to all of our customers. If we do see some film festivals with some good films that are really kind of aligned with accessibility, we'll also put them up on the app behind a passcode. At the bottom of the app is a redeem button, and sometimes we'll put a redeem code for a film festival. There's Superfest, for instance, this coming weekend in October 2018 that is providing some films with audio descriptions. We'll open up just those customers that are there. And the way that we look at home titles is, where can we find our core three to make available, which means audio description, closed captions, and some type of Spanish, whether it's captions or dubs.
Right.
Because we really want to only put movies up where people can feel as though if they see it in the app, it means they can watch it. We don't want people to come to the app and see a movie they want to watch and then recognize, oh, they have the captions, but they don't have the audio description. Right. So that's step one for us, is making sure we have one service for the blind, low vision audience, one for hard of hearing deaf, and one for Spanish speaking, which are the three kind of major segments. Anything else on top of that, of course, is something we're happy to provide. And then it really comes down to which studios are willing to play ball. Many of them want to go through some sort of test service or test cycle where they have, 1 to 5 movies on board, sometimes smaller ones with less piracy risk,
right.
that they want to try it out and see, 1, do customers like it? And 2, operationally, how challenging it is for them to put 5 movies on if they're about to agree to put 500. That can be a really, really daunting task, especially with a new platform that is just figuring all of this out. And of course, we've technologically built a lot of systems in the back end that enable this to happen very smoothly for the studio. But that's not seen until it's tried. Actiview really is the app that people use is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's been built technology-wise. It's the way that customers obviously interface those content, but tooling that's done, the security and measures that are in place to make this operationally possible really sit behind a very, very big black box, underneath the surface that really works hard to make this process possible.
So I have to ask a little bit of a geeky question. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, go for it.
If I'm watching, because here in Canada, I did download the Actiview app on my iOS phone just to take a quick look at. And I saw you had, 4 or 5 or 6 home movies there that I could check out. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to watch something at home, have you thought about incorporating some sort of Chromecast or other type device that you could cast to your big screen?
Sure. So we kind of ask ourselves this question often of what is Actiview really for? You do have platforms like iTunes and Netflix that are starting to provide audio description. The coverage is not perfect, but of course, we can commend anyone on the effort to make, access more widely available. And one thing that we get from customers in terms of where Actiview adds a lot of value is I'm watching with my family. I'm the only one that needs audio description. I'm the only one that needs Spanish.
Right.
Let's make it personal for me and let everyone else watch the way that they want to watch. And so that's kind of been the use case that we've optimized for in the home. Less so kind of the solo viewership where you might want it over your speakers or sound system.
Okay.
There's no reason why in the future it's not possible, especially as we work to find integrations with a lot of these platforms, trying to find partnerships with the Netflixes, the Amazon Videos, and Google Plays of the world. But for right now, I think that our goal is kind of this personalized experience where you choose your volume, your service, your experience yourself, and that doesn't impact anyone that's sitting around you. Always curious to hear thoughts from other people that kind of have a use case that we're not kind of optimizing for there, but that's been our thinking to date.
Sure. I saw as one of the home movies, you have Pick of the Litter. And, I saw that. It's something my wife, I'm totally blind. My wife is fully sighted. So, we both want to see that movie because I actually went to GDB and had my first and only ever guide dog from there.
Wow.
So I'm familiar with them quite deeply. So I don't know where to get that movie here in Canada. I've sent them an email, so I don't know if I can buy it or download it from iTunes or what. But I saw your movie there. So at the moment, I think I can watch it, but she can't unless we huddle around my phone.
Sure. Well, just a reminder that for the Actiview app to work, it needs to sync to another screen. So unless you can find the movie, the Actiview app won't actually unlock that content.
Right.
It's part of the security protocols in place is that it basically ensures that someone can't get the content without paying for a ticket. Because if it hears the movie, you've likely paid for a ticket or a rental or something. And that's part of what makes the studios okay with this system existing is that they can ensure that when someone's using the Actiview app, they've somehow made a buck from it, whether that's a ticket sale, a rental, or a subscription through a subscription provider.
Okay.
And so with Pick of the Litter, obviously it's had a limited release. I mean, quite a successful release though. From what I understand, there are about 135 markets, which when they really only expected many less than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I was speaking to the director actually over the weekend, Don, and he said that their plans coming forward, I'm not sure, which platforms, but plans going forward to put these on some of the over-the-top digital providers to make it available in the home for people. And certainly when that happens, we'll be ready. Yeah, the movie's already up there.
Great. Awesome.
I don't think we covered this, but how long has the app actually been in development for? Like, how long have you guys been working on this?
Yeah, I started building Actiview when I was 21 years old, 2.5 years, maybe coming up on 3 years now, which has felt like both a very short amount of time and a lifetime for me.
Right.
It's been my full-time job all that time. We have a small office in Berkeley, as I mentioned. There's two of us here, myself and my counterpart, Alen Koren, who started with us about 6 months ago or so. She actually does a lot of our work with community organizations, customer support, and just planning around marketing as well, which is something that we're not doing at a large scale right now, but she's certainly kind of gearing up for those moments when we have big blockbusters to start spreading the word. We've been pretty hesitant to really jump on the marketing wagon until we have good enough coverage with movies in enough places to make that worthwhile. We don't want people going to the app and hearing about it saying, oh my God, I've been waiting to see Venom for so long, and then go into the app and say, I'll realize, Actiview doesn't have a deal with Sony that's live right now. And so we don't want people to go on the app and really kind of give the app negative reviews because we don't have the content they want to watch. So we've been kind of quiet and telling people about the great opportunities of movies we do have, but not really about the platform and everything we want to promise, at large. And one thing I can kind of say to that point, I know this is off your question of how long we're working on it, but for us, such a big piece of this is positivity coming back from the community and washing over the studios. Every 5-star review on the app is such a big nod towards the value we're providing. And every 1-star that comes through, which is not often, but they do, saying, you guys didn't have the movie I wanted 1 star. What I really hope people recognize is that those are actually not going to help us get the next movies.
Right.
That really, it's hurtful when a studio sees a 1-star review. They're not reading why we got the 1-star. They just see a 1-star review and think the app is not providing what it needs to provide. And so every modicum of positivity comes our way in the form of testimonials, reviews, anecdotes about experiences people have had at the theaters with or without Actiview, really go a long way to say this is a target segment for the studios that they're missing out on that is valuable and excited to use Actiview. That is what's going to drive this thing and what makes it possible. You know, I can sit here and build all the technology I want. Without the community, this will never happen.
Yeah, and you know what? That's okay, because that kind of answers my follow-up question, which is, because it sounds like the tech part of it's all done. Like the app sounds rock solid. It's working great. You've got an Android version coming out. So, you know, all that's sort of taken care of. So I'm assuming that now going ahead, it's going to be all about getting those studio deals and getting the content.
Absolutely. I mean, these things happen in parallel. I wish I had 5 of me. You know, I'm sitting here writing code in my free time and then flying down to LA to meet with studios. And you know, obviously we're on a very tight budget as a small team. It's, you know, this is not something that we're making any money off of today. And so this has been a challenge all around. Just to speak to the Android app for a moment, it's something we get all the time. We know that it's a huge need. And of course, you know, I've only got 10 fingers to write code with. And so what actually has to happen is the app was built and has been built for several months, but it needs to go through a security review with the studios to make sure that it's up to their standards.
Right.
And we went through this process last year. It was about a 3-month process with the iOS app. And we're going through the same process right now with Android. So we're kind of in a holding period, waiting for everything to be okay. Hopefully we won't get anything back that says you need to make this, and this change before we can make it live, because that would obviously delay things further. But pending everything going well, the Android app should be out, you know, relatively soon.
That's got to be so hard because, as we know, Android is so fragmented, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, I've got to say that the technology that was designed around the synchronization is not your, you know, usual little to-do list app or reminder app or something. There's a lot of very, very complex technology in there between the audio and playback of content and security that really makes these things a bear to tackle, quite frankly, on a mobile device. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll add in there, this is just more of a fun fact for you guys, but theatrical movies play at 24 frames per second. Mm-hmm. Movies in the US and I believe Canada as well play at 23.976 when they're in the home. And movies that are in Europe or other countries are usually at 25 frames per second when they're in the home. So theatrical always plays at the same speed. American and Canadian home releases play at the same speed, and then everyone else plays at a different speed.
Right.
And it creates an issue for us because if we don't provide the right files and the right timings, you end up off sync over time. I'm not sure if you guys have ever tried to listen to audio description that you've gotten offline and hit play at the same time as you might have on a DVD and have them get out of sync by about 5 seconds by the end of the movie. Well, that's probably because you're listening to a British version against an American version or a theatrical version against an American version, and those play at 2 different rates that will bring you off time as the movie goes on.
Right.
I always joke that I wish I lived in the UK because that means I can finish more movies per year. They're playing at around 4% faster than the American ones, and God, I could watch so much more of The Office and Friends.
Have you guys talked or thought about TV shows as well?
Yeah, without a doubt. TV shows are something that we recognize the rewatch value. We recognize that they are such a massive part of culture, especially with. I mean, we're in the golden age of content. We look at, you know, Amazon originals, Netflix originals, and the other TV shows that are coming out, you know, in parallel. We want to provide for those. Right now, I think that it's kind of step at a time in terms of technology. There's a big overhaul that would have to happen in terms of our user interface to allow you to find seasons and search and things like that.
Right.
But certainly TV is on our radar and something that we've built the cloud to support, but the app right now is not caught up on.
And I was saying to Rob on the weekend, we have an organization here in Vancouver called Vocali, and they do live description of theater plays, that type of thing. They don't do movies or anything. It's just all live theater.
Sure.
And have you guys thought about live theater using the app? You know, because currently Vocali uses like FM transmitters, right? So they give you a little hardware device, you plug in your headphones. They have a microphone, and I guess it transmits, and you pick it up. An app like this, over Wi-Fi or data, would be pretty slick, I would think. I don't know what's involved, but if you could just use your own mobile device. Have you guys thought about that, or is that something you could incorporate into the app?
Sure. It was something that we had actually in the original box. We could provide that box to a live theater, a sports stadium, anywhere, and really kind of enable a microphone, a digital transmission, anything you wanted to really be output of that box. Currently, because the app is more focused on this kind of sync and playback mechanism, the app itself actually doesn't really incorporate any technology that would enable a live transmission. Not to say that in the future it's not a feature that becomes a part of the Actiview app, but it's a different technology stack that enables that. We know how to do it, obviously, from our box work, but we've discontinued that product just for a variety of reasons. And I think that there's a world in which it comes back, but right now we're focused, I think, more on the pre-recorded content as our use case. And not to I love live theater. I love the idea of the inclusivity at any event, whether it's a corporate event or an entertainment event. For us, just the size of market against the size of our team, our focus, we want to focus on what we think is going to be the biggest impact first, which is kind of the TV, movies, Netflix, AMC kind of mixture with those blockbusters.
Okay, well, don't tell our boss, but I think Rob and I are heading down to California. We're going to work for you guys. Rob can work on your
our
marketing.
doors are open. We've got many an empty desk here in the Actiview office. And we've got Fridays where we go and watch the movies that we have available on the app ourselves. So those are the company perks.
I'm so in.
Excellent. Rob's all about movies.
Yeah. So let me ask you, going back to the studio deals, because I'm kind of fascinated by this. So, do you guys strike up a deal with a studio, and then you're kind of in the door with any of their content, or do you have to negotiate on every single movie?
Oof. I think this is kind of a studio by studio, case by case thing.
Okay, fair enough.
One thing I can definitely say is that theatrical and home are almost like two different companies inside of each of these studios. Oftentimes we'll find that we've got a relationship building with one side of things, and to build a relationship the other side is like from scratch. Maybe we'll have an introduction, maybe we'll have a cold email that goes across, but oftentimes it really is like working with two different organizations. The only things that kind of come across are security, kind of, if we do the theatrical, obviously it seems like we're secure enough for the home, which is already released. And so that's kind of thing number one. In terms of the deals we actually make with these studios, we try to structure them to make it as easy as possible to add more movies to the contract. It's not always that way. Like I said, it really depends on the studio. Some studios have kind of committed to a longer term stretch of films, and some just say, hey, we're going to run these one by one, and as things work and grow, then we can look into a longer term deal. That's kind of the way we look at it. I think that from our perspective, we were asking for the world. We want to have universal access to all content. But as we grow, we recognize that we can't start by asking for that. We need to kind of get piece by piece and prove to them the value of what we're doing.
Right. Now, once you have a deal for, say, a particular movie, is it a pretty easy process from there? Like, do the studios provide everything that you guys need? So for example, they provide the MP3 of the audio description to you for the cloud, or they provide all the closed captioning?
Sure. So that they do. We try and stay away from producing anything for the content that we have. We really kind of want to be a delivery service more than a production house. It's kind of where our skill sets lie. Not to say we haven't produced some audio description and captions and translations before, but they really aren't kind of our core focus. So usually what we get actually is the files as they live on the hard drives in the movie theaters. And then we convert those in-house. I've built tools that enable kind of conversion of those files into files that the app can play back. Of course, there's a lot of encryption in between. I won't get too deep into the details, but they provide us all the media we need for this to be possible, and we kind of make those conversions happen.
So now, once you have the license to distribute, I guess, or stream a movie, is there like an expiration date on that license, or is that ongoing, perpetual?
Well, it depends on the content. So obviously, when we sign a theatrical deal, it does not mean that we have it when it comes out in home. So theatrical expires when the movie's out of theaters, depending on the territory. Mm-hmm. For home, again, depends on the studio, but usually we're looking at around a year-long contract. That's pretty easy to re-up. Okay, right. I think that really it's more a let's check back in after a year and see how things are than we want to end this after a year because we don't want to support this anymore. Okay. So it just kind of sets a time for us to re-engage and say, hey, how are things going? What's usership like? Any issues that have arisen? Any changes we want done? Let's look into that. That's the way that we approach it.
I'm going to have Rob go through my Blu-ray library here and see if there's anything that you can get me a movie for. I got to try this service out. I'm in Canada. We're always behind. Everything goes to iOS first and goes to the US first. And
you got to give them time, Ryan.
Time. Be patient. I don't have time.
Patience and support. I mean, just having us on the show today is really just such a great thing because for us, I think that we want to pass on the message of people that want the Actiview app. We don't want to be speaking for anyone. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more people that hear about what Actiview is trying to tackle and the mission of just better access as the core tenet of what we're doing is so helpful to have done. So helpful to have people be aware and know that they can reach out to us and share anything they want to that might aid in our growth and the opportunity to provide this kind of a service.
Well, and I think Rob has mentioned before, the majority of our listening audience is actually in the U.S., and then it's Canada and splattered around the rest of the world. So, there could be a lot of people who are hearing about your service for the first time and, could be flogging your servers, downloading the app.
Well, we love it. We keep track. Well, it's one thing we do is we, provide back statistics back to the studios for each of their movies, who's watching what services are they using, was captions used more than audio description or vice versa, what languages, and I can really tell you that they look at these emails, respond back. They have a vested interest in seeing those numbers rise.
Sure.
So whatever we can do, whatever you guys can do to get more people to open that app, to check out movies, to download them and go watch them, that is the most impactful thing anyone can do to make Actiview become a larger and better providing service with more movies and more content.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think it's important for people to know that Actiview is out there and it does have the potential of growing like this because, a lot of people, like, again, they'll go to the theater once and they have a bad experience with that equipment and they just never go again because they just think that, I mean, Ryan was telling me just before we turned the mics on, the last movie he went to was Thor.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and not because he doesn't love movies, he has a whole shelf full of movies here. It's mainly just because if you don't think that the services there are going to actually work for you, why would you go back? So I think that it's really important to spread this message that Actiview is here, the technology is here. It's just we need the groundswell of support to make it happen.
There's nothing that will get a studio movie faster than people saying, I'm not buying your tickets because of X, and there is a solution. We just need you to work with it. I can tell you that the studio operatives, it's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't, they sit there and say, I don't know any blind people, so it doesn't matter to me. It's just more so I have 20 different competing things that I need to tackle in a day, from getting the movie made in surround sound versus stereo and making those rumbly chairs, that move around when the movie plays and all those things. Where does Actiview fit in? Right. And if we can show that their efforts, which don't need to be very, very large to make this possible, but their efforts, in making this available on Actiview will bring them a good customer source, they're going to make it a priority.
And we've been sort of talking a lot about the visually impaired community that can benefit from this, but we should also mention that Actiview is also has a closed captioning. It also has enhanced audio for people who are maybe hard of hearing.
Language translation.
I mean, there's a lot of solutions built right into the app as well. Not just audio descriptions.
Right.
Definitely. We had a Deaf News Network, DPAN TV, put out an article about going to see Peppermint, one of the more recent movies we had from STX, with closed captions. They went and saw it. They did a video on what it was like, and we saw our user numbers jump about 20% in one day from that piece of coverage. Which was not insignificant. It was a massive day for us. Our servers managed to keep up, so I'm very, very happy and proud of that without issue. But of course, I'm looking at our statistics tracking, and I'm just wide-eyed as I see all these customers flowing in. And it definitely is that when I can say all I want. This is a great service to help people that are blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, speak a different language. But it really means so much more when people that are users of the service and need the service come out and say, this worked for me. It makes people really believe so much more that this is really a valuable service when it comes from within the community.
I can't encourage people enough to, especially if you're in the US, go out, download the app, support these guys, go see a movie, leave your 5-star review, get in touch with them, let them know what your experience was like, because we need something like this. Worldwide, and we're seeing more and more audio description, whether it's Apple original content, Netflix, Amazon, everybody's doing it now, and they're all including descriptive audio. We're getting more and more accessible solutions, so support these guys.
And especially, God, I mean, theaters should be tripping over each other to take advantage of this. Yep. Honestly, because they've been complaining for years about things like privacy, or about things like digital downloads that are killing the movie going experience, because people are just waiting for things to show up on Google Play or Netflix.
Well, they keep trying to reinvent themselves, right? You can go and have dinner delivered to your seats now, and wine and alcohol, and it's going to be a 5-star dining experience soon, going to the movie theaters. But people are more and more wanting to stay home and have that experience at home. We can do that now. So the theater owners are taking notice, I think, that their seats are emptying, and they need to find ways to get people back in them.
Yeah, and it's an untapped demographic, I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
See, we need to be your marketing guys.
That's exactly what I'm hearing. I hear that you guys need to be here in the U.S. and just tackling this for us. I don't need to say a word. I'll just bring you guys into the studios and just say, listen to these guys. They'll tell you what's what. I am sighted, and I don't have any needs in terms of captioning or enhanced audio. But every time I do go to the theater, I ask for the equipment, and I go quite often. I went last night to see First Man, the new Neil Armstrong movie with Ryan Gosling, which was marvelous, just really, really phenomenal movie. And I borrowed the captioning device, and you know what? It didn't work. I know how to work these pieces of equipment. I know how to calibrate them and connect them and troubleshoot just as well as a trained staff member at those theaters can, because of course this is my job, this is my background. And to walk into a theater and fiddle with it for 5 minutes and then just put it on the ground and say, well, this is fine because I can hear the movie. But imagine, if I was deaf or hard of hearing and I'd be sitting here saying, well, what the heck did I spend $15 for?
Exactly.
I wouldn't come along. And so, I do it to remind myself of just how important the service we're providing is. And I do it to also keep theaters on their toes. The more people that ask them of this, the more they're going to try and make sure, people are using it. We should, make an effort to make sure they're charged and kind of working. So the next person, whether they're using the Actiview app or one of the pieces of equipment, our goal is access. I'm never going to mind if someone goes to a theater and uses a piece of Dolby equipment or Sony equipment and it works. I'm going to say that's great. I'm very, very happy that was provided for anyone that went there. It's just always disappointing when I see exhibition not keeping up with their requirements to provide this. I have one question for you guys, which is, obviously we're talking about going to see a movie in the theater, going to watch a movie at home. How much would you guys want to have an app that provides just audio description in the way that Spotify provides music? I'm curious, from your perspective. I know there's ways to find that, of course, online and some of the forums and stuff, there's some files floating around, but a legitimate service that provides that. I'm curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I do think that there would definitely be a market for that. We've talked to a couple audio descriptive services, and they've told us the same thing, where more and more mainstream users are taking advantage of different accessibility features for convenience.
Yeah.
You're in the kitchen, you're chopping vegetables or whatever, and you can't have your eyes on the screen. So having an audio descriptive track playing underneath it allows you to sort of to do both. So, totally. I think that there would definitely be a market for that, especially if the price point was low enough where you didn't even really think about it.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Release it tomorrow. I'll pay you $10 a month.
Love it.
One
That's
customer.
great.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Like you're mentioning before that, for years and years, it's been drilled into moviegoers' heads that, put your phone away, don't text. So in terms of like using, say, the captioning service to watch a movie, I mean, I'm assuming that you'd have to have your phone out and in front of you and on to be reading the captions as well as watching the screen. How would that work with sort of current theater policies?
So it's a really good question, because it's one that was it's the first question we got when Actiview was started. Wait, phones in theaters? From day one, it's been kind of been trailing behind us. The first thing is, with all the audio services, audio description, the dubs, the enhanced audio, which we call amplified audio in the app. You put your headphones in. Once the app is synced up, just put your phone in your pocket. It's out of mind, out of sight. It's it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not. It doesn't need to be out for the app to work. But for captions, of course, you need to be able to look at the screen. We also do provide sign language interpretation of some films. Right. We were trying to push that for deaf children who can't read subtitling yet. So it's a video of a sign language interpreter on the screen that's interpreting the dialogue of the movie. So both of those services require captions and sign language to be out and about. And the way we designed the app is with a pitch black background and dim text, or the video being dim on screen of the interpreter, so that it's not emitting a lot of light. And if you're watching a theatrical, it actually also auto dims your screen to about 10% or so. So it's quite dark. We've really optimized to minimize that light that comes out and make sure that it's not going to be bothering anyone else. We hope that long term we can, get theaters to show some sort of pre-roll, 10 seconds, just saying, hey, Actiview might be being used in this theater. If you see someone using their phone for captions, please allow them, the support in knowing that equal access is being provided, and then just know that they're here to watch a movie as well.
Right.
Finally, a lot of people say, how do I hold my phone while for an entire movie? It's a question that we kind of, it's not perfect. We know that Actiview, again, it has its caveats. One thing we've seen done is people bring little selfie sticks or tripods, that they use for taking photos into a theater and set up their phone on that. And they kind of have it out in front of them a few feet. So they don't need to hold it, but this device can hold it for them. And that's been pretty successful because they cost $10-15 on Amazon. You can bring them to the theater every time,
right?
Knowing that you're going.
You've thought of it all.
We try. We certainly try.
All right. Well, listen, Alex, we certainly appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us. Obviously we're super excited about this app.
Super.
We're going to do what we can. We'll certainly include links in the show notes. But for those people who are too lazy to look at the show notes, where can people find you guys in the App Store or online?
You can find us at activiewapp.com, ACTIVIEW app.com is our website. Activiewapp.com/download will bring you right to the Apple iTunes store to download the app itself. You can find us on Twitter or Facebook at /Team Actiview. We're pretty active in posting everything from articles about new movies to news about things that are going on in the deaf and blind communities. We really try and kind of make a full circle about inclusivity. Everything that we produce is audio described or captioned and has image descriptions. We want to make it a fully fledged kind of accessible platform.
All right. Thanks again, Alex. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You too. It's got to get here. This thing could go
just
worldwide. This thing could explode.
what's impressive is in the fact that it's a 2-person operation at the moment. Like, that's amazing to me.
Yeah, like he's doing the coding, then he's got to go talk to the studios, then he's got to come back, get the files ready. Like 2 people. Like,
yeah, that's super impressive. Like, I really expected when I did research this morning about Actiview and took a look at the app and the website and stuff. I suspected it was like at least a 10-person operation. I suspected it was small, but I would not have guessed that it's 2 people. And literally one person's the marketing person. So very impressive, really impressive, and incredibly important service, because it's really time that movie theaters took this stuff seriously, because let's be honest, their proprietary equipment that they have in the theaters, almost across the board, no matter who you talk to, where you talk to them, they all have the same story.
Yep.
They're junk.
Yep.
They're either not working or the batteries are dead. Nobody's maintaining them.
Well, and that's, even just, I'm just going to throw this out there anyway, but even just the cleanliness factor, like, how much more clean and convenient is it to bring your own device? You don't have to worry about using the theaters and maybe somebody is taking it to the bathroom with them, or, you know what I mean? Like, who knows if it's been cleaned, sanitized? It's just, I don't know. Just more comfortable using your own device. You're familiar with your own device. It's an app. It just makes so much more sense.
Yep. Yeah, it does. So, really it's all about spreading the word. So, Ryan, go ahead. You preach to the audience and tell them what to do.
Any of our audience living in the United States, reach out to Actiview, download the app, check out any content that's available in your area, talk to your theater owners, go in and promote the crap out of Actiview, let them know what it is, what it does, and that's just spread the word about accessibility.
Boom. Well said, sir.
Boom.
Oh, all right. Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us in many different places, but to start with, they can find us at atbanter.com.
They can also drop us an email, if they so desire, atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
We are also on Facebook, atbanter.
We're on Twitter, too.
at_banter.
Boom.
Boom.
Hey, what about Canadian Assistive Technology?
You can find that gaggle of geese at canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com.
I heard that. Also, if you have any sort of assistive technology that is in need of repair or needs a new battery, or you just can't sort the damn thing out, Chaos Technical Services can help you out. www.chaostechnicalservices.com.
And you can find us on all the popular streaming apps, platforms, smart devices.
All right. Anything else? Or are we done here?
No, I think we're done.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening once again.
Activiewapp.com. Activiewapp.com. Activiewapp.com.
This subliminal message brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology. Canadian Assistive Technology. Canadian Assistive Technology. Anything else?
No, we're done.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you all next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.